everyone, it's Delaney, and I have another art project for you this week. So since Lunar New Year is coming up, I thought we would make paper lanterns out of construction paper. I'll show you how to make two little ones. So all you're going to need is some construction paper. You'll need red, yellow, and then black or white. It's your choice. You'll need scissors, some tape, and a pencil if you need to draw lines for guiding when you're cutting. So gather all your materials and we'll get started.
Alright, so let's get started. So the first things you're going to need are some construction paper. You'll need red and yellow, and then I have white here, but you can use black if you like. You'll also need some scissors and some tape, and then you can also grab a pencil if you'd like, if you want to make lines for when you're cutting. So the first step is going to be taking your red piece of paper and holding it with the long edge on top. You're going to fold it in half, like you see I'm doing here. And that way we'll fold it into two so we can make two mini lanterns. So as you can see, I'm just lining up the edges. It doesn't have to be perfect, but try to get it as even as you can. And once you have it folded in half, just fold down. That way when you open it back up, you'll have a line down the center in which you'll take your scissors then and you'll cut right down this line so you have two separate pieces of paper. Alright, and now you can see that I've got two pieces of paper. They're nice and evenly cut in half. And now taking one of the pieces with the long edge on top again, you're going to fold it upwards so that you have one long rectangle. And you can see I'm folding this one paper in half, but you're also going to do it to the other one so you have two identical pieces of paper. Okay, and now you can see I've got those pieces of paper folded in half, and what you want to do, you want to hold it so that the folded edge is at the bottom and then the two open pieces are at the top. So now what we're going to do, we're going to take our scissors again and we're going to cut little strips into the paper, but we're not going to cut all the way to the edge. We're going to stop about 3/4 of the way up. That way there are no separate pieces. And you can draw lines if you like to make them a little more even, but they could be as thick or as thin as you like, but you just want to cut right up about 3/4 of the way, not all the way to the edge. That way none of the paper separates. So you see I've went up, I've left some space at the top, and now what I'm going to do that down the rest of the paper. And I'm going to do this with both sheets of paper, and I'm going to speed this up, but if you need more time, go ahead and pause the video and unpause when you're ready to move on. Alright, and now that that's all done, I'll show it to you. As you can see, I've got all these strips along the paper, and if I unfold it, I still have a whole piece of paper, but now I have a bunch of holes in the paper. So now if I hold it like this, with the folded edge on the outside, if I wrap it around and I make a circle at the top, you'll see I get a nice lantern shape. That way it kind of sticks out in the middle, and that's where the folded part of the paper goes, and it gives it that lantern shape. And now to keep it in this lantern shape, what we're going to do, we're going to line up two of the edges so that they overlap just a little bit, and then we're going to take our tape and we're going to tape the edges at the top and at the bottom so that it holds this shape. So you'll probably only need about maybe 2 or 3 pieces of tape at the most, and all you're going to do, you're going to wrap it into that circle again, as you can see I'm doing here. And then once you have it lined up the way you like, all you have to do is just tape it on one side of the lantern and then fold it over the edge, then onto the inside of the lantern. And then you can see it starts to hold the circular shape at the top. And then you're going to do the same thing at the bottom, taking a piece of tape and then sticking it to one side so that it covers both edges of the paper, and then folding it to the inside so that it stays in that circle. And now you can see that the lantern shape holds and you don't have to hold it in place anymore. And if you want, if it overlaps and you can see there's still a bit of a gap like I have here, you can add another piece of tape just so that you don't have that gap in between the pieces. And once you tape that down, you're going to do the same thing to your second piece of paper, which you cut the strips in. That way you have two lantern shapes. And I'm going to speed this up, but feel free to pause if you need more time. Okay, and now that those are taped together, you can now see that we've got a nice lantern shape from our construction paper. But now we're going to add a couple more details, and that'll be a yellow trim around the top and bottom. And we're going to use our yellow construction paper, and we're going to cut strips so we can tape them around the edge. And if you want, you can sort of measure it. We're going to use the long edge, that way we know we have enough. So you can sort of measure it from where you stopped cutting when you were cutting the strips in the red paper from the edge of the yellow paper. But you can just kind of eyeball it if you don't want to take the time to measure it. And then what you're going to need, since you have two lanterns, you're going to need 4 strips of paper. So once you have about the size that you want, just cut 4 strips of these paper to put onto your lanterns. Alright, now you can see I've got the 4 strips of yellow paper here, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to separate it out 2 and 2, so I have 1 lantern for every 2 sheets of paper. And I'm going to take a strip and I'm going to wrap it around the top edge so that it creates a yellow trim at the top. And as you can see, I've got some excess paper here, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to take my pencil and I'm going to make a little mark to where the end of the yellow strip meets the next. That way I know where to cut it so that I don't have any excess. And then once I have this cut, I'll be able to measure it out with the rest of the strips of paper so that they're all the same length. So now that all of my yellow strips of paper are trimmed, I'm going to go ahead and rewrap it around the top of the lantern. And now it should be the perfect length so that there's no excess paper on either end. And it's okay if they overlap a little bit. So now that that's lined up, I'm going to take my tape again and I'm going to tape up the 2 edges so that it stays on the red paper. And I'm going to use the same method as when we tape together the red paper. That way it stays attached to the lantern and not slide off. So I'm just going to put it on one side of the yellow paper and then wrap it over the top edge so that the other side of the tape is on the inside of the lantern. And I'm going to use this method for the bottom half as well when I flip it over, and for the second lantern. I'm going to speed this up, but feel free to pause the video if you need to, and then unpause when you're ready to move on. Alright, now that that's done, you can see that we have a nice yellow trim to our lanterns. And now the next step is going to be adding a little handle so you can hang your lanterns around your house. What we're going to do, we're going to take a white piece of construction paper, and we're going to use the same method that we did with cutting the strips for the yellow paper, except this time we're going to make them a lot thinner because it doesn't need to be that thick. So you're going to want to cut out 2 of these, and they can be any length that you like. I'm making mine a little longer so I can adjust them later on. But once you have those 2 cut out, as you can see here, I've got them at a nice length so that I can put them on my lantern and then see if I wanted to adjust the length of them. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to set it up so that it loops from one side of the lantern to the other. And as you can see here, I'm trimming it just a little bit because I think it's a touch long. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to take a piece of tape, put it at the end of one of the strings, and then tape it to the inside of the lantern, like so. And then once it's on one side of the lantern, I'm going to take the other end, loop it around, and then take another piece of tape, attaching it to the other end of the piece of paper, and then again sticking it to the inside of the lantern so that nothing is shown on the outside. And as you can see there, it'll hang nicely, and I'm going to do the same thing to the other lantern. Alright, now that that step is done, you can see that they'll hang nicely and you have 2 completed lanterns. Alright, and we're done. As you can see, this is how mine turned out, and now with the little hook that we made, you can hang it up wherever you like. So if you need to, go ahead and rewind the video if you need to rewatch steps, and be sure to post pictures of your lanterns to the art folder because I'm really interested to see how yours turned out. Until then, I'll see you next week with another art video. Bye!